the ever-changing weather around the world, ever-diverse terrain and roads across the world. With Kumho Tyre that has conquered all, there is no road you cannot go. Go with Kumho. Kumho Tyre.
And after that amazing display of advertisements, I tell you what, that new Logitech ad was absolutely fantastic. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to tonight's Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans Championship. Last week, we brought you an action-packed blockbuster from Road America. It led to the most safety cars we've had so far this season. Now we'll transition to one of the newer tracks on iRacing, all the way in the most northern parts of the Northern Hemisphere. We're at Rudskogen Motorsenter in Rakkestad, Norway for Season 14, round number 4. Once again, Scott Rankin alongside of Brady Baldwin. And Brady, this is as technical comes. Trail braking, late apexes, flow, carrying speed. It's got it all here at Rudskogen.
Yeah, certainly, Scott. Thank you for the intro. New track on the iRacing service here in Norway. A very difficult track in these big V8 supercars. A few laps I did myself earlier in the weekend. It's certainly going to be action-packed racing here tonight as we go in closely on Rudskogen near Oslo in Norway as we zoom in on our Google Earth shot. Thank you to our producer Daniel Yeaman for these wonderful pictures as we're looking at this 14-turn circuit here at Rudskogen. A Herman Tilke built racetrack, Scott. We were just discussing that earlier.
Yeah, and look, somebody in our broadcast booth, we won't name names, said that they're not a fan of Herman Tilke tracks. Well, I'm a big fan of Herman Tilke tracks. They've got a lot going on for them, and that's sometimes the best thing you can do, particularly when you're like me and you have a little bit of ADHD going on in the background. 14 corners. I did see right the first time. 14 corners here tonight. No corner names, ladies and gentlemen. They are literally 1 through to 14. Long start, finish straight. A little bit of a chicane in turn 1. Have a look at where that pit lane exit feeds out on the outside of turn number 2. A long downhill straight leads you into turn number 3. Not running wide into turn number 4. There's a slowdown penalty to be picked up on the left-hand side. The flowing chicane, very reminiscent of Circuit of the Americas through 5, 6, 7. And then it's up and over a crest, a little bit of a dip into a long extended turn number 8. The kink at turn number 9. Downhill again for another sharp hairpin at turn number 10. Back up through 11, 12. It's all flowing through here. It's just about hanging onto the pace. Left-hander at 13, right-hander at 14. And that is your Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans lap description here tonight. Qualifying just about finished in the books. And a big shout out as well to our sponsors that make this possible. Can't do this without, obviously, the Kumho Tyres primary sponsor of the V8 Veterans Series. Player 1 Sim Gear, you'll see the Logitech G Replay as usual, and don't forget, Parramatta Isuzu Utes. All of our partners that make broadcasting possible here for the V8 Veterans. I tell you what, Brady, we've just talked about complexity. I think this start is probably one of the trickier ones we're going to have this season. We saw how chaotic it potentially had. There was a lot of potential all the way back at Ockersleben, but it's very similar here. Turn 1, turn 2, nearly identical to Ockersleben.
Yeah, it certainly has a lot of similar characteristics to Ockersleben, even through the middle part of the racetrack where it's very tight and twisty. As we see our race information for the night, 62 laps in distance, 200 kilometers, just a one-stop race will get you home. Critical lap number will be number 18. We should see guys pitting between that critical lap number 18 and 27 to make it home, which will be a very long second stint for these drivers. So they'll certainly have to look after their tyres in the latter half of the race.
Yeah, and reminder, ladies and gentlemen, last week we came to you from Road America. That was 31 laps the distance. I believe that was our 300-kilometer race of the season. It was a little bit longer than it is indeed here tonight. That on screen is your current point score, but 62 laps the distance here tonight. 200 kilometers is your race distance. Sean McNamara at the moment starting to just skip away on these guys just a little bit. 23 points is the margin. Back to P number 2, where it'll be 11 points back to Talyancic. Can Talyancic throw some strategy together again? He bobbled late in the piece last week from Road America. Damien Cairns is only 9 points further back. Another 9 back to Michael Stewart. What a week it was for him, full of reminiscent moments and a great honour it was to be in and around the boys here last week. Jeff Thomas on 464, so only 4 points before we'll throw back another, you guessed it, 9 points to 2 drivers on 7 points, 7 equals 7th position. And finally, John Latham, 13 points further back before we'll get a different number that's again not 9, back to 10. So top sort of second down through to about 5th, 6th is incredibly tight. And it's important after round number 3 that these guys continue to just keep logging points. Cannot stress how critical it is to just be consistent throughout the season. We saw Sean McNamara last week, horror show in terms of how things were looking, managed to keep things together, scored a bunch of points late in the piece.
Yeah, certainly an interesting note that Sean McNamara isn't on the grid tonight by the looks of it. So we will have a new points leader going into next week. And as we're looking at the grid, some of the championship contenders, are right in the thick of it up front.
Yeah, have a look at your qualifying results. Scott Gamble returns to the series after a week off last week from Road America. He is going to be off of your pole position. The number 6 car of Anthony Visma, who's probably had his best qualifying performance of the season, out of P number 2. So those guys working together off the front row of the grid. We'll throw it back to Mark Duggan and Matt Vandercrane. Again, Crane has been in and around these points just about every time. Tonight, can he put that consistent race result together? Damien Cairns, we mentioned, was quite a way up there in terms of points as well, and Craig Friend are your row number 3. We'll look back to row number 4, and Tim Nicol. I saw an amazing drive from him in another series just a few nights ago, so he is on strong as well. Kenneth Latter will be alongside of him. Stuart Hall and Michael Talyancic will probably sit and go, you know what, I'll accept a P10 at what is going to be a technical and tricky track. This is going to be a barnstormer, and for a driver with one hand, that's going to be an absolute effort for him. Ty Byrne and John Latham in 11th and 12th. Moving over to row number 7, Michael Quain and Chad Lewis, Stephen Kennedy, Travis Hunt, Dave Kirby, again qualifying not his strongest suit, Greg Sharp alongside of him on row number 9. Brady, take us away for row number 10.
Chad Vigor and Scott McCune will round out row number 10. Jeff Thomas in the 85 and Dean Flavel in the 880 will share row number 11, with Robert Crisdale and Brenton O'Brien rounding out row number 12, with Dan Hall, Darren Crosby will be row number 13, then row 14, Christian Smart and Chris Miller sharing that row, and row 15, Rick Vigor and Andrew Hoffman, Rod Hollis, Robert Griffiths, Hal Cesar, and Stephen Banks should be the last car, John King as well at the back of the grid, and we will have Shane Evans and Jeff Richardson at the back of the grid with a few safety cars and race control guys at the back.
Yeah, and there's a few notable sort of missing in action drivers right up and down the field. We say to all the drivers, we hope you're having your best Australia Day. There's probably a few people that are out and enjoying themselves as we come to the end of the holiday seasons, and everyone's going to start getting back into school and back into work over the next couple of days. 45 seconds before these drivers will be let loose and going the distance. Is there anyone other than Scott Gamble, we'll just ignore him up at the front, that's sort of out of position there, or somebody you want to keep your eye on at all?
I think Anthony Visma is second in points, and he's driven some very good races. We've seen him pull off some really good strategic masterclasses throughout the season, so he'll be one to watch. And like you pointed on, Scott, certainly one of his best qualifying efforts. And then the row behind, Mark Duggan and Matt Vandercrane, certainly right up there. I think we're going to have a bit of a mixed up top 3 to top 5 tonight.
Well, 15 seconds now, settle it in. There's going to be a gap in the tank, as is normal for your V8 veterans. We hope that you guys are sitting back on your Australia Day and enjoying the coverage from the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans Series live on SimSpeed Network. Right, lights are going to come on. These drivers are going to start to build the revs. Who's going to get the runoff down into turn number 1? Who's going to make that poor getaway we've seen over the last couple of weeks? And the drivers are off for the first of 62 laps here tonight. Gamble's got a great getaway. Gamble's actually bobbled it in the second half of the start. It's Visma who's going to lead from the outside of row number 1, and Gamble goes back to 4th place. Visma cuts across the first corner. Potential for a slowdown. They're 3 wide halfway back through the pack, and it is just an opportunity to get as far forward as you possibly can. Multiple drivers getting aggressive on the run through 1 and 2. And I wondered if Visma dropped back. There's a lock break in the middle of the pack there as well. And cars running wide. That's a slowdown on the left-hand side. Get yourself settled in. Craig Friend it was that, I believe, locked a break there on the run down at turn number 3, and they finally settled themselves in, still 2 and 3 wide further back in the pack, and finally at the end of a long couple of corners here, Brady, they've settled themselves in. It's not been an easy night for the mid-pack here.
You certainly just noticed Anthony Visma must have had a slowdown from that start, and he's dropped right back. He's had to serve it there halfway through the lap. He's probably dropped back 3 or 4 spots.
Craig Friend's got the same thing, yeah. Yeah, so I would say Stuart Hall's round. No, it wasn't Stuart Hall that was round. There was one car that was round in the hairpin, turn 10 on that first lap. It is Stuart Hall that's facing in the wrong direction, and he is sat up there on the curbing and waited the entirety of that field to go by. Visma got a great jump, but he's picked up, I think he's got to have picked up 2 slowdowns on that first lap. Something's gone wrong with Matt Vandercrane, or is it Pete Vandercrane? It is only Matt Vandercrane tonight, so another slowdown. That is the trickiest part around here. They are so harsh on the track limits because there's a multitude of spots where you can get a ton of time by just exceeding those limits just a little bit. And turn 1's another one. That'll be another slowdown for the car there on the inside. Was that Vandercrane again?
Yeah, it certainly was Matt Vandercrane again. He had a brilliant start, was running position number 3 at the start, and that time by was position number 19. He might have to fall back even more, so very disappointing stuff for Matt Vandercrane. As we go back on screen with Michael Antigen, Damien Cairns battling for position number 4, but Mark Duggan started position number 3. He's out in front. He's absolutely checked out. 2.7 seconds. The lead back to Scott Gamble. Fantastic start.
I was about to say, what's going on there for Gamble, because he dropped back to P4 on that opening lap. I would say that gap has been caused by the slowdown penalties that are being served. Look, it's difficult. We all know that nobody wants to get a slowdown penalty. Le Mans is about the only other place that's maybe going to have somewhat of a relevant pecking order of what happens in terms of those slowdown penalties. But this is a tighter track. There is no good spot to serve that penalty issued by iRacing.
No, certainly not, especially with the tight confines here. And looks like someone's already dove into the pits. It's Anthony Visma on lap number 2.
So he's got a penalty, which means that says to me he failed to serve the slowdown penalty in time, which is why he went backwards. I think there might have been 2 slowdown penalties. He's picked up one at turn 1 for sure. He was a long way across the curbing. We can confirm that. We didn't have the shot to show us down at turn number 3, whether or not he was wide there. So turn 2 and turn 3, you can pick up 2 separate slowdowns. See the left-hand side of the track there? You cross that white line, you get an off-track. It's not just an off-track, it's a slowdown penalty as well. So there's 2 opportunities in the first couple of corners, and that looks to be what's going on.
Yeah, certainly. I'm just having a look at Visma now. He's actually on the jacks in the pits, so wondering what is actually going with the number 6. He's not serving a penalty, a drive-through penalty, at least in the pit lane. Looks like he actually might be retiring the car because he's still on the jacks and he's sitting in pit lane, not going anywhere.
Well, that could be a penalty. It could be a 40-second stop and hold penalty. He's still sitting there. Yeah, that definitely looks like serving a penalty. There's another car there as well who also looked like serving a penalty. So there was multiple slowdown penalties issued on lap 1. It's sort of premium space on the track is sort of at a premium on that opening lap. And Visma's come unstuck because of that. Darren Crosby had a very long stop. So that looks to be a penalty of some description as well. Whether or not Visma might have even picked himself up and entering a speeding on pit lane entry penalty as well. So there could be a multitude of penalties. He's had the best qualifying effort he's had all season, and then he's done that on lap 1.
Yeah, certainly, unfortunately, it's gone all wrong for Anthony Visma early on. Unfortunately, he won't be able to capitalise on that good result, as Mark Duggan still checking out 2.8 seconds of that last one by as we go on board with Damien Cairns, the Type N Eastwood's car. Very nice up he's got going there, Scott.
Yeah, up into P5 for Cairns. That's a great start from him. We'll keep our eyes on him as he continues to go through. And I tell you what, this is worthwhile taking a ride on board. We talked about being very reminiscent of Circuit of the Americas. I mean, if it's going to be a Herman Tilke track, it's going to have that flowing chicane section at some point. But that is a phenomenal set of corners to go through. Toyota 86 racing from this track is fantastic. And these effectively just their bigger, more powerful cousins with less assistance. What a series to be broadcasting. It feels very appropriate to be covering this series on Australia Day.
Yeah, certainly the V8 veterans. Hopefully a few of the drivers have had a few beers tonight and today, and hopefully I'm enjoying their Australia Day, obviously, and hopefully we'll put on some good racing tonight. So far, so good. We've had a few little incidents, but mainly turn 1 and 2 the first lap was very clean, very surprising.
So I can tell you, Visma has gotten back. I think Crosby's come back into the lane again because he's back down at the back. And yeah, so Visma is actually ahead. Craig Friend is now down in 34. So the worst positions, most positions lost, is definitely going to be Visma at this stage tonight. He is now at 1 lap down. Craig Friend also at 1 lap down, and Darren Crosby is on the verge of going 2 laps down because he's right in front of the race leader at this point in time. So passes 4 position in the middle of the pack and still continuing on. The guys on screen at this point in time, and what a livery that's been so far this season from Travis Hunt. I do not want to be looking through my rearview mirror and looking backwards at those bright big green eyes. A little bit of a bump and run, forced to check up. Now there's been a slice and dice in the midfield, and somebody else has come away with the position. It's Scott McCune. Apologies, ladies and gentlemen, that is a camera difficulty. That was not the car going over. As you can see, Scott McCune is still all 4 wheels up on track.
That was certainly a moment there for, it looks like we've unfortunately lost pictures here for here we go, we're back live. Scott McCune going through the turn 13 and 14. Right, doing a really good job there, Scott McCune. Massive battle back there right behind Chad Vega, battling for position number 13 and 14.
Another loser on lap number 1 due to slowdowns being served, Matt van der Crane. Started P4, ladies and gentlemen, P18. And Craig Friend from 6th back to 34th. Stuart Hall, remember he was around on that first lap, back to 30th at this point in time. He's now 30 seconds off the race lead after starting in P9. Let's try and look for some drivers that are potentially going forwards. The biggest mover I can see at this point in time is probably going to be Scott McCune with 6 places gained, but there's a lot of opportunity out there. Looks actually like we've got another driver that's on the move. It's going to be Halil Cesar, and I just watched him go through turn 1-2 sideways a moment ago, so I don't know how long he's going to be hanging on to that one, but hey, he's grabbed 11 spots. Now he's got to hang on to them.
Yeah, certainly a fantastic start for the number 5 machine, Halil Cesar. Doing a very good job, up to 22nd at the moment, and going back to the race lead, Scott Gamble has not really made an indent on Mark Duggan whatsoever. I would have thought Gamble might have closed the gap, but Duggan's doing an absolutely fantastic job out in front. Lap times wise, he's matching Scott Gamble, so Gamble actually closed in a 10th that last lap, but I thought he would have been closing a little bit more on Mark Duggan, but just shows how good that 864 is.
Yeah, and he is settling comfortably in. This is the first time that we've seen Mark Duggan with the ability to show a clean set of heels, and I love it from him. Maybe Gamble's holding back a little bit. Maybe he's doing some fuel saving. Maybe he's looking after those tyres. It is, well, we've mentioned it a few times already, Herman Tilke track, and they all tend to be tyre burners in a V8 supercar. They are not easy on tyres around here. With the technical layout, it's not easy on drivers either.
No, it's certainly going to be a brutal race tonight. 62 laps, 200 kilometres are in this circuit, and it's a brand new circuit for everyone, so it really levels out the playing field amongst the field, and we've seen that tonight with the qualifying results, and so far in the race we've got a mixed up running order at the moment, which is really good to see, and some really good drivers sort of battling their way through the field, and some guys that we usually don't see at the front are at the front, so it's really good to see.
Can I just talk about how critical it is for Michael Taliancic to be where he is in the running order at this point in time, because he's done a phenomenal job, and Tim Nicol is the driver we're looking at immediately behind him in P7, but up 5 spots from starting in P10 for Taliancic, just ahead of Nicol. Nicol's having an all-right race as well for himself. Only improved 1 position, but he's still in there and he's still about. There's something's just going on in the last couple of corners. McCune. Apparently McCune has gone backwards. Indeed, that is Scott McCune going the wrong way.
Massive moment there for Scott McCune. We'll try and pick up a Logitech G replay if we can. He's had a massive moment there. Wonder if he got any help. Doesn't look like it. Actually, a very unfortunate incident by looks. We will go to the Logitech G replay of Scott McCune. We'll take a look at what happened. Transpired here at turn number 8. Comes through and gets into the back of another car, and the other car rebounds back into him and spins Scott McCune around. So a bit of an unfortunate incident for the Hypersonic Racing 77 machine.
Yeah, that was a tricky one. It just sort of looked like they were tripping over each other a lot. Takes the alternative line. He's looking to try and pick up the throttle and get out there, and Chad Vigor is the car that he's made contact with, and unfortunately, it's been a last couple of weeks like that for Chad Vigor. I think Phillip Island, he was involved in a whole bunch of biff, boff, and wahoo. And last week at Road America was not an easy race for Chad Vigor either. So I think he'd be keen to get some points on the board. Does not want an incident like that in the opening couple laps.
Yeah, certainly unfortunate for Chad Vigor. He really got away with it pretty well. Hopefully didn't get too much damage. A little bit of left front impact by the looks of it. But he's certainly going on with it at the moment as we go on there with, looks like Chad Lewis in P9 at the moment for the ERT 727. He's in behind Ty Byrne in the number 64 machine, and right behind him, David Kirby in the number 307 machine. Special livery from David Kirby tonight. Seeing he was streaming earlier and said he had a new livery. We'll have to try and check that out on the 307. Bit of an Aussie Day tribute there for the Fishy Motorsport machine.
And doing well as well for Dave Kirby. He's actually improved his position from starting in 17th. He's up inside the top 10, albeit the last car inside the top 10 at this point in time. But it's a long race yet. Get your head down, keep your eyes forward. Look at that livery. Very, very different livery from the Fishy styles, but you can tell the thing going on there at least for him. Look at the car wiggle around as well. That says to me that those rear tyres are starting to burn. He's going to have to be exceptionally careful to look after those rear tyres, but I think the whole field are going to be. It's one of those tracks where you nearly want to sit back in the opening stanza and just sort of let it all happen around you so you've got tyres at the end of it.
Yeah, certainly, and we talked about the critical lap number being number 18, which is still another about 9 laps away, so certainly a little while away yet before we reach the critical lap number. But even if you go to lap number 18, that makes the second stint very, very long, and you probably don't want to be doing 35 plus laps on a set of tyres around here.
I'm telling Taliancic might just pick himself up a slowdown penalty rolling through turn number 1. He was very much over and across the curbing. Looking up and down the field. There's now eyes on Chris Miller at this point in time, and this actually might be a really good opportunity for the ladies and gentlemen at home for us to go on board with a driver and get a potential lap, because to be perfectly honest, I've done quite a few laps here in a multitude of cars. This is a fun circuit to drive around.
Yeah, certainly. I've done my fair share, like a couple laps in the supercar the other day, and this track is probably a bit more suited for the small cars, like you mentioned before. The Toyota 86s would be a hell of a lot of fun around here, but these big, heavy V8 cars around this tight, twisty circuit, certainly very difficult, but a new track's always fun, Scott.
Yeah, and a flowy track as well. The Juice car just in front lead Juice Racing car, a little bit of a blink, not quite settling in. And it's Rob Crisdale that's behind the wheel of that one. Now the run down to turn number 10. Late braking, late apex. You've got to turn it in and stay on the brakes down here, which takes all of a driver's technical ability. So easy to pinch a brake, so easy to pick up the throttle too quickly and rotate the rears. At any stage throughout this lap, it's very, very easy to put the car in the wrong spot. Then you misplace for the next corner. Look at the wheel work as well. Look at how loaded and long this last corner is. You'll listen to the throttle pickup, how cautious he's being with the throttle delivery, how he's going to open the steering wheel, how he's going to balance everything to keep the car in alignment. That is a huge mental load on the drivers. We talked physical load last week. We talked physicality of a race at Road America. This is a mentally loaded race.
Yeah, certainly, and certainly the elevation changes is probably what makes this track so difficult as well. It's got a lot of tight, twisty bits, but the elevation changes certainly unsettles the race car a lot, especially with these big V8 touring cars. So the drivers certainly have it in for them tonight, and a very long race indeed. We've still got another 51 laps to go.
Yeah, do we have that graphic that we prepared before the stream ready as well, which shows the safety car numbers over the last couple of weeks? Coming to Rudskogen, I'm actually going to... we were looking at safety car numbers. Round number 1, there was no safety car at Ockersleben. Round number 2, I think was one from Phillip Island. I don't recall there being a second one from Phillip Island. But last week at Road America, there was a safety car for Greg Favell. Unfortunately popping an engine with what we refer to in the business as the money shift, and a multitude of incidents from Road America. Almost coming here tonight, and I was expecting a little bit more fire again. But maybe the driver's got a talking to from race control and said, hey, settle it down, let's go racing. You guys have got the ability. We saw that in round 1. Does that affect the mentality of the drivers at all, Brady?
Yeah, certainly it'll be in the back of your mind there.
Oh.
I mean, it looks like we've had a bit of an issue there for Rick Vigor this time in the 014 machine. We might try and pick up a replay of what happened to Rick there. He's certainly had a bit of a moment there, and he's dropped right down the field, unfortunately.
Yeah, so unfortunate from Rick Vigor. Again, another one of those drivers that's not putting together the cleanest of races, so he needs to get his season back on track when it's possible. A run off of turn number 10 into 11, wide here at turn 12, and just pinches a brake and the rear end comes through. He's done well. He's actually done very well to hang on to that.
He's done very well to keep it out of the wall, and yeah, he does keep it out of the wall. So good save there from Rick, and he done a very good job there. But unfortunately, he's lost a few spots from that, and he'll have to get the skates back on and try and make that ground back up.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult not only to make up time in a field with this sort of a level, but also to look after those tyres whilst you're doing so. Next step of the equation is keeping yourself in the game, and unfortunately, sometimes to keep yourself in the game, you got to lift off of the loud pedal. Right, back up into this battle that's going on between Taliancic, Nickel, and Latham are the three cars on your screen at this point in time. This one's going on for P number 5, and they just don't seem to be getting away from each other or closing in at any stretch of the imagination. They all look very, very similar. If they get close enough from Tim Nickel as Latham starts to set it up, where's the passing opportunity here, Brady?
I think probably down to turn 3 and turn 4 is probably your best bet to try and get a move done. It's very difficult to try and get a pass where they're going through now, 3 and 4. That's probably a decent opportunity, and probably that hairpin at turn 10. It's probably your two main opportunities through this section here, 5 through to 9. It's very tight, very twisty, and I don't see anyone getting a move unless there's a big mistake from a car in front. Yeah,
it's got to be set up. It's definitely a big, big setup track, but at the corners where it matters, and thank you very much for those, Brady. I think it's 1-2, you're right, and then that puts you on a really odd line for 2 on the run down to turn number 3, and it's just about shoving the nose sometimes. It's just getting in that driver's mind that, hey, I want to get past, I'm right here. Have a look at the difference in lap speed as well from the two cars that are on screen at this point in time between John Latham, who we were riding on board with, and Tim Nickel. It looks like that Latham is very, very quick through the first sector, but struggles in the middle of the lap, and then makes a lot of time back up here out of the final corner, and then back into the first sector.
Yeah, certainly some good drive traction there from Tim Nickel on Taliancic's battle for the back end of the top 5, and just had a look at the timings between the top 2. Gamble has made up a little bit more ground on Mark Duggan. We've sort of left these guys alone up in front. Gamble's checked out on Ken Ladder for P3. He's got 5 seconds on Ladder, but Gamble's closed the gap right back into 1.6 seconds now to Duggan, so maybe Gamble just saved it for the first probably 10 laps, like you said, Scott, and maybe now just starting to push and try and close the gap before the pit window opens.
Have a look at those lap times as well on board. There's nothing in it. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. One driver will make a little bit of time. The other driver will make just as much time back. There's just about nothing in it over the last couple laps. So lap 11, there must have been a mistake from one of the two drivers, and that's what's caused the big overlap. But other than that, every time we've checked in with our leaders, it's been just about consistent. There's no major time being taken out in either direction. It's going to be a long haul if Scott Gamble wants to get this one back, and it all come down to that start. He did not get a great getaway.
Yeah, certainly his initial launch was pretty good, but the second initiation, the second bite of the start, Mark Duggan just blew his doors off, literally. So, unfortunately, Gamble didn't capitalise on that good initial start and lost the start. He was back to P4, now he's back to P2.
Yeah, and now have a look at the rear bumper of Ty Byrne, who's got himself Chad Lewis, I believe it is, all over his rear bumper, and that is also Dave Kirby, just immediately in the background as well. So another little 3-car battle pack. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Ty Byrne ran real wide there at turn number 2. I literally looked away to start looking for where the battle packs were a little bit further back, and Ty Byrne said, hang on, focus on me a little bit longer. Here comes Dave Kirby down the inside in the Fishy Motorsports car. Gets it done on the entry. Very difficult to go around the outside, but it's possible. Burns is wide, but he's on the outside for 2 corners, and Dave Kirby slams the door shut. Not quite done. Little bit of contact, a wiggle in the rear end, a fight through turn 4, 5, and 6. And that'll finally settle itself down for the drivers inside the top 10. They finally get it done. Ladies and gentlemen, what a drive for both of those guys, all caused by a mistake you mentioned there, Brady, from Ty. He let that one sort of come to him, didn't he?
Yeah, so just a small mistake there in turn 1 and 2 for Ty Byrne. Just let the door open and really compromised his exit out of turn 2 to go down the long straight into turn 3. So unfortunately for Ty Byrne, 2 spots lost there, but he's got a good pace, so hopefully he can make that back up.
And this is the next car in behind Tyburn. This is Travis Hunt, and that's them that you can see up that next battle pack in the shots. Is Hunt on his way through. Started P16, he's gained himself 5 spots, and I guarantee you he's got P6 and more on his radar, and he is indeed coming through the field. Hasn't been it's another driver, ladies and gentlemen, that has not had a great season in terms of consistency, but the pace has been there week in and week out for Travis. Is tonight the night he finally makes one stick?
Yeah, certainly Travis has been there or thereabouts all season, ran the top 10. Some very good results so far for Travis. A bit of an unknown name to me in the V8 Supercar scene, but he's doing very well. P11 again tonight. Got some good speed. He's a couple seconds off the back of Tyburn, so hopefully he can make up some ground. He's got Michael Quain right behind him. So, like I said, good start of the race for Travis Hunt.
Another battle pack we probably want to focus on is from P17 through to P22. Throw a blanket over them. They are all racing each other exceptionally hard, led by Chad Vigor. Through Christian Smart, Chris Miller, Robert Krydals, and Halil Cesar, who was our driver that was on the move in the early portion of this race. He's now up 12 spots. And here they come. And there they go. That is an awesome shot. That's nearly as good as getting down on top of the curbs. I like that tyre barrier camera quite a lot, because that reminds me of going to local dirt bike tracks and sitting on the tyre barriers and watching.
Yeah, certainly a very cool action shot there from Jay Kennedy, produced that one. So thank you, Jay, for the awesome pictures as we go back on board with Chad Vigor. Pushed out that little incident earlier. He's down to P number 17. But Christian Smart and the Synergy Sim Racing Machine right on his back bumper. Smart will have a little look down the inside of turn 1. Probably won't get that done. Very, very tight corner turn 1. It'll open it up. A little bit of a mistake there from Smart. Got the rear end to step out just a little bit. Compromises his run. And now Chris Miller's going to be on the back of him into turn 3.
Yep, so opportunities are going to generate themselves aplenty. I can tell you there's a huge battle pack just in behind these guys as well. Another set from P23 all the way down to P30 is there's sort of 2, 3, 3, 2 again. You know, there's cars just this way, that way, a little bit everywhere. We'll stay on board with the battle between Christian Smart and Chris Miller. Oh, Miller just about buried that nose in the rear bumper there of Christian Smart. And these guys are going to have to be careful, or it's going to be over in a real hurry.
Yeah, certainly these guys are trying to turn up the tempo just before the pit window. Everyone wants to make every position they can, and looks like Chad Vigor's just struggling just a bit. His lap times have fallen off considerably compared to the guys behind, so he might look for an early pit stop to try and get some fresh tyres on this race car, but certainly it looks like he's holding up this pack behind him just a bit, and Christian Smart looks like he's getting a bit keen to try and get past.
Yep, so keep your eyes out through the front and out through the rear as well. It's going to be a difficult one to try and get this job done. And it's not quite there and on the table, but he's just lurking. Everyone's lurking. I wonder whether or not Vigor is actually a little bit of a cork in the bottle, holding these guys up. It's backing Smart up. Smart thinks about it on the run down into turn number 3. Not quite going to be able to get there. Closing all the while. Vigor is in real trouble here. It might be 1, and I think very, very quickly it's going to be 2, 3, 4, because to get an overtake done, it's going to slow this whole pack up.
Yeah, certainly. I think once Smart gets by, it's going to open the floodgates for everyone else to get past Vigor. Looks like he's just hanging off for dear life at the moment. Whether the tyres have just gone off considerably or he's made a few mistakes and the car's just going away, I'm not too sure, but he's definitely struggling for pace. He's certainly a lot slower than the guys in front, and he's shown a big battle pack behind him, pretty much all the way down to Dean Flavel in 21st. Is certainly built up behind.
Mate, I tell you what, you think this is tight. It's, like I said, 22nd to 30th. Now it's going to be 28, so they make a liar out of me. 22nd to 28, so just about 2 battle packs, very similarly sized. The front end of town has started to separate out a little bit, but Scott Gamble's starting to come back at Mark Duggan. If you want to keep an eye on your lead gaps, that's important. And Robert Krydale is going to be the first car to come down and take what will be probably his only stop of the night, and indeed he will be able to fill up and get home from here. So that is the commitment from Robert Krydale.
Yeah, certainly. As soon as the pit window opens, Krydale's in, so he's going to have certainly a mammoth task, about 42 laps on a set of tyres. That's massive Fortunately for everyone here, 21-degree track temp, so not too bad. So it's not going to be that bad for weather-wise on tyres, but certainly 42 laps around this type of track is certainly going to be hurting those red tyres by the end of the stint.
Yeah, and the session information, ladies and gentlemen, 7:43 a.m. on the 15th of May is the simulation set up for tonight. As we just go to start our 20th circuit of Rudskogen Motorsenter, and the lap time from Scott Gamble was 2.5 tenths of a second quicker that lap by than Mark Duggan. It looks like Duggan's starting to fade. I can tell you Ken Latter is in P3. He's just ran a 22.0, so he is starting to fade a little bit as well. And Damien Cairns might start coming back at those guys. Multiple cars starting to pit and starting to rejoin. And the worst part, ladies and gentlemen, is down in 32nd at this point in time was our first pitter, which was Crydale, I believe, has just rejoined nicely into a hole, but nearly alongside a ton of people. More cars opting to come through the pit lane. Christian Smart reckons that he can get by Chad Figure if he does. Sorry, it was Chad Figure if he can come into the pit lane. And the problem that he is that Crisdale has got that undercut, so he is threatening as well. So you're starting to see the two-fold strategy, nearly a Formula 1-S strategy. One dips, they all come.
Yeah, certainly Christian Smart, probably the leading car so far to pit in this race, and looks like Rod Hollis as well in the lane. So we'll be interested to see when these leaders come into pit. We obviously in Crysdale 36.4 seconds in the stop, because these guys will be taking a full 111 litres of fuel, especially when they're pitting on lap 18. That will just get them home. So, and Matt Venegar in 36.8 in the box, so just a little bit longer. So certainly the longer you go in this first stint, the less you'll have to take, but you'll also lose a little bit more time because you'll be on older tyres compared to the guys that pit earlier. They'll be on fresh rubber.
Yeah, but you've also got to feed out into what is a hole on the circuit. You don't have that hole to feed out, it is going to cost you time, not gain you time. And that's the big unknown around here, is where are you going to feed out? So Crisdale's going to go through on the right-hand side of the screen, does get a massive undercut, so he was getting held up in that battle pack. And the problem here for Chris Miller is that he has fallen, sorry, it was Christian Smart. He has fallen in just behind a couple of cars on the run through turn number one. No, he got out in front of them, so he has actually cleared them. He is good to go. That was critical for his strategy. He is lap traffic in this situation, so he'll need to show a little bit of intent and get the move on. Obviously, the cars behind him want to get through. They do not want to get held up. If he can show some intent, I think Race Control will be happy to let that one go.
Yeah, certainly think in this situation with Smart on newer tyres, he should be able to pull away just enough to not hold up the likes of Chad Lewis and David Kirby behind. So I don't think it should be too much of an issue for Christian. He's already pulled out a little bit of a gap, a couple of car lengths already, so I don't think that's going to be an issue, and he should hopefully get the eyes forward and try and catch Robert Crisdale.
Yep, so John King, unfortunately, has just come over the comms in Sim and said that, unfortunately for him, the night is over. There is not much more that he can get out of this one. Charlie Anchich is just on screen as well, has lost the 2 spots to Nickel and Latham. So something's going on there. Whether or not that was another slowdown penalty, it was Visma that picked up the slowdown penalties earlier on. So, we might keep an eye out. We might hold that one in the bag at this point in time, because have a look at the battle pack that's forming just in front of these guys as well. They're starting to tag on to the next cars on the road, which is Nickel and Latham. So the guys that have looked after a little bit of tyre, a little bit conservative. The car is coming to them, and it's in this section of the strategy. We are 9 laps away from being at the 10 laps away, 9.5 laps to being at the halfway point of this race. Boy, has that gone quickly tonight.
Yes, certainly. I just had a look at Talianch's why he lost those spots. It looks like he did have a slowdown penalty. He went really wide there at turn number 7 and 8 and let a few cars by. So my guess is he did have a slowdown. He served it last minute and put him back to P7 from P5. So actually 2 spots lost for Talianchich, but he's definitely shown pace to get the spots back.
I tell you what, it's actually going to be forming ourselves into a nice battle pack. Have a look at the 2 cars on screen as one of them goes wide. It's going to be Lewis that's under assault now from a surging Dave Kirby. Round the outside, job done. 307 moves up 1 more spot. He moves in to P number 8, so equals 7th in the championship. Well, he's 7th and 8th on the road. That's about the right spot for him. He's doing a great job, Dave Kirby. Drive from him, but Lewis now starting to go backwards. It's important to note as well that these 2 cleared Tyburn and immediately started making ground. I'm starting to wonder whether or not we'll have some of those groups up and down the field. This pit stop cycle, it's continuing on, but they're trickling into the lane. Scott Gamble looks like he might have caught Mark Duggan, and he opted to come for the undercut to get the pass done. He knows the difficulty that Sean McNamara had in getting around him at Ockersleben, and he recognises that this is the opportunity to go for the undercut. Good information for him is that the track is clear right about where he's going to feed back into, and that's critical because just about a lap is the time that you're going to lose in the pit lane. It's about 90% of a lap, so you come out slightly ahead of where you were previously.
Yeah, certainly it looks like he will have a pretty clear track, Scott Gamble, as he's coming to the end of the pit limiter area now, and looks like he's timed it perfectly. Scott Gamble, no traffic whatsoever, so he can get the hammer down now, and we'll certainly be looking for Mark Duggan to react. He hasn't pitted this up. He's gone by again, Mark Duggan, so it's only going a little bit longer. He'll only have about another 3 laps of fuel to keep going, so we'll have to see when Mark Duggan pits and where he comes out in relation to Scott Gamble.
And it might be time for some of those cars that are in that battle pack from 4th, 5th, 6th to actually come down through the lane, which is going to be, I think it's going to be Latham, Nickel, Taliancic. Kirby's going to come in for the undercut. I don't hate this from Kirby. He was on pace. He was starting to look good. His big weakness this season, he's qualified very deep in the pack in just about every race. And you can't do that in fields of this size with this amount of battling that's going on at some of the circuits that we've got on the calendar. You're in the middle of the chaos. You're just inviting disaster.
Yeah, certainly. Kirby he's sorry, I'm trying to get my words out. He's had some really good race pace this season, but like you said, just a little bit off in qualifying. He qualified 17th tonight. It's probably one of his better results of the season, and he's gone into the top 10 and he's had really good race pace, so hopefully we'll see Gamble go by. So he's definitely not a contention with Gamble, but hopefully he gets at least a jump on Chad Lewis, who was racing, maybe make a little bit of ground on Taliancic.
Yeah, I think if you give him 2 laps here, he might just clear all of those guys, and then they've got to look through the front end of the car at him. Duggan's got another circuit, so he's going to continue on with this strategy. I really don't hate going long here. Those tyres were starting to fade. We've seen a fair bit of fall off in terms of that lap pace. We're in the realm where it was getting towards 2 seconds in terms of time fall off compared to that peak qualifying time. And that says those tyres are screaming to be changed. The problem for Gamble is he's got to look after them. He's definitely got pace, but he's got to look after them. Latham is still hanging on to P6. No, he's gone to pit lane. And here comes the queue of cars here, Brady. It's going to be busy season at pit lane, as most of the field probably coming in either this lap or the next lap you would expect.
Yeah, we've got Duggan, Latta, Damien Cairns, and John Latham. So 4 of the cars in the top 5 in the lane. So the guys that have stayed out, Tim Nickel will now take the effective race lead. Mokko Taliancic, they've all stayed out. So we'll have to see where Scott Gamble comes back out. He's got around turn number 14 right now, and Duggan's not even off the jacks yet. He's still on the ground, so I think Gamble's going to streak away. He's already gone by. See you later. And
Duggan's got a penalty because his car's clearing him from behind. So that's a speeding in pit lane. Oh! In a season where you need to get a good result in, and Duggan was clear of the field, looked to have it under control, there have been I can't recall a driver that hasn't made a major fumble at some stage. It's basically what McNamara had his last week. Gamble's, he's been in there and in abouts. He's missed 1 round so far. The drop round will cover that up. He's about the only car left standing that hasn't had a major error at some point.
Yeah, it's certainly unfortunate for Mark Duggan. He's been in the lane a long time. He's only just leaving now. 77 seconds in the pit lane. So that equates to about a 40-second penalty for Mark Duggan. So it certainly looks like a pit lane speeding penalty. And unfortunately, that's undone all the hard work he's done. He's only just come out in front of Robert Kreisel, who was pretty much mid-pack before he pitted. So that's how much time he's unfortunately lost. Hopefully, he can make some ground back up. But now that really leaves it in the hands of Scott Gamble. He has a massive lead at the moment.
Yeah, so that says to Scott Gamble now, if he's aware of what the circumstances are, and he should be, because he'll know that Duggan's nowhere around him and he's no longer reading the race. The entire field is in this lap, so there are no cars left out. Ladies and gentlemen, I have yet to pit. Gamble will know that he's got to look after some rubber. There is no point in pressing on at extreme speeds because he's just going to potentially create some risk. He is now just in race management mode, and it's important to have that race management mode. You pull it back, it's not 110% anymore, it's 95%. It's just looking after everything. There's no reason to push. He's got 10 seconds on the next car.
Yeah, certainly, and the rest of the field have pitted this lap, so keep that in mind. Tim Nickel, Michael Taliantras have all pitted, so we'll have to see where they come out in relation. They've way behind Damien Cairns and Ken Latta. They've massively checked out on Taliantras. I don't think the gap was that big before, but obviously the undercut's been massive here tonight.
Yeah, and we've had a question come in from the YouTube chat as well. Big shout out to Luke Holland over on YouTube. Wants to know, do we think if we're getting stoppers early that they'll two-stop it? 62 laps the distance here. Strategy call, Brady?
If we get a safety car, 100% we could see some guys, but I just think you'll lose too much time in the pit lane. If you're a mid-pack guy, maybe, but I don't see some of the front guys pitting twice around this track. I could be wrong, but I think the guys will just pace the race now and wait out till the end.
And the reason for that, Luke Holland, difficulty of overtake. That is the key factor around here. Not an easy track to overtake. We saw the battling that went on at Ockersleben. This very, very similar. We haven't seen a bulk of cars making huge overtakes. Matt van der Kraan is on the resurge. He's up into 11th at this point in time after what wasn't a great start. Look at Michael Quain's drive as well, which has put him all the way up into P4. His stop was on lap 21, and it was only a 50-second transition time through the pit lane. So either he's got another splash and dash to do. There's no way. There is absolutely no way that he saved 17 seconds worth of fuel. That's an immense amount of fuel. So there's your two-stopper. There is one driver having a crack. It has given him a fair bit of clear track position and a clear track to race around, but he has got to come back. That is an immense amount of time that he'll be losing when he comes back in for that second stop.
Certainly, Michael Quain will be the one we have to keep an eye out later on. He's only gone for that two-stop strategy, like you said, Scott, and he's got 5 seconds back to John Latham in the next spot, and say if he loses another 20 seconds, they'll put him about 20th, roughly, on our... Sorry, will be about P15, which is pretty much where he started, so... He might not do too much at the moment, but some fresher tyres at the end might give him the upper hand and might be able to make a couple moves.
Well, it's all pace, isn't it? I mean, he's got to show a clean pair of heels. He's got to get aggressive with what he's doing to make it work, and it means that if there's any mistakes whatsoever or any driver that holds him up at any stage, it's going to be extremely difficult. Christian Smart's going to get the job done on Crysdale now, as Robert Crysdale does start to fall backwards in terms of those tyres. And don't forget, Mark Duggan was the next car up on the road for these guys as well. He started to put the hammer back down again. He's pulled away from these two. And now he's starting to hunt back in on Jeff Thomas. So it'll be interesting to see how his progression continues. But Crydale with that early stop, his tyres are already falling by the wayside. And that says volumes about what this race is going to develop into for him.
Yeah, certainly. Crosdale, like you said, was the first guy to pit out of everyone that we've seen. So certainly by the end of the race, Christian Smart, big moment in turn one, might just have a slowdown from that. That will also open the door for Chris Miller in the 666 machine. He might even get down the inside of Crosdale. A little bit of technical difficulties there for Crosdale. He won't get the job done, Chris Miller, but a little bit of a mistake there from Christian Smart. We might see him with a slowdown penalty in just a couple of seconds.
Yeah, well, it's 3 laps later was Chris Miller on the pit stop from Christian Smart. 4 laps to Robert Crysdale. So he is going to have a whole bunch of pace in the tank later on. Chad Vigor's 3 seconds behind these guys. Remember, we're talking about cork in the bottle moments? Yep, Vigor was the cork in this battle bottle. And moving up and down the field, these pit stops have really seen and sorted a whole bunch of drivers. I'm having a look. About the major battle pack we've got on at this point in time is Rod Hollis in 24th. He's got Bretton O'Brien, Scott McCune, Stephen Kennedy, and I believe it's going to be Robert Griffiths as well. Is that huge battle pack from 24 through to 28. So that's your major battle packs that are going down at the moment. And then 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th are another sort of battle pack, which is Travis Hunt, Dan Hall, Jeff Thomas, and Duggan is starting to climb onto the back end of Jeff Thomas as well. So that'll be drivers that we'll be checking in with over the next couple of laps. Somebody's just dropped off the track as well. In and around Robert Griffiths. Was it McCune again? It was McCune! Oh! He is just not having a great night. There's a few drivers, again, that are really having that. When you've got 30-plus cars, there's going to be 5 or 6 of them that have a terrible time.
Yes, unfortunately for McKinnon, a small mistake and dropped him down again back to P28. So unfortunately the 777 machine, the hypersonic racing car, fortunately not having the best of nights tonight. So hopefully he can finish out the race strong in the last 33, 34 laps and try and bring home a good result.
Yeah, talk about control over the race at this point in time. Gamble is just showing a clean pair of heels. He's gone. Absolutely gone. It's a battle for second, really, is the only one going on at this point in time. I can tell you, Damien Cairns and Ken Latta are fighting over that on track. They're just about underneath each other. I don't expect anything to go on at that point of the track at this point, but Deanne, who's that group of cars we got on board? That's still the Vigor battle, isn't it? Yeah. It's Vander Crane. Sorry, my apologies. It wasn't Vigor, it was Vander Crane. And this is going to be an important battle because top 10, everyone wants that race.
Yes, certainly. And Greg Sharp, he's doing a very good job, up 8 spots, and I don't think that's a name that I've really recognised battling in the top 10 all season. So I could be wrong, unfortunately. Sorry, Greg, if I am wrong, but he's doing a very good job so far, holding off Matt Vander Crane. We've seen Vander Crane's one of the top runners in the championship. He's had pace all season. He's doing a very good job to hold him off.
So we'll have to continue on with keeping an eye out for that battle. I can tell you, Taliancic had a very, very slow lap that last time by, but a 24.118. So he is going head-to-head with Tim Nicol, and Nicol looks to have won that battle for now, but they will continue to go on. Dave Kirby's 4 seconds back off of those guys. His tyres not really looking after him and putting himself in a nice position at this point in time. He's trying to hold up that next group of cars that we were just watching a few moments ago. So he's sort of existing in the middle. There's sort of a lot of cars spread out at this point in time. That's the gap from Tim Nicol in P6 back to Taliancic in P7. Both of these drivers did pit on lap 26. I believe they exited pit lane, so they entered pit lane on lap 25 into lap 25.
And we've also reached the halfway mark, Scott. So halfway through this race, and remember, we'll have to keep an eye out on Michael Quain. He'll probably be pitting around about lap 40-ish. He was the guy we talked about before that's on a 2-stop strategy. Unfortunately, he's losing ground to Scott Gamble. At the moment, we've got a battle on screen for P number 2, Ken Latta, the Synergy Sim Racing car against the Type N esports machine of Damien Cairns. Latta, big mistake. He's gone around the outside. We've had another technical issue there for producer Dan, and unfortunately, Latta will have a look, down the inside. Big move down the inside.
Yeah, it's not over yet. And here comes Ken Latta back through. He'll take that spot back away from Damien Cairns. They've got 5 seconds over the next car, which is Michael Quain. So they are existing a little bit out on their own, but there's still 30 laps left to go. It's going to be interesting to see whether Latta can pull away with this one. Last time by the stripe, it was Latta over Cairns. So they've swapped positions twice in that lap, and they will repass the start-finish line exactly as they finished the last lap. But not for the entirety of the lap with the positions so.
Yeah, certainly good job for Latta to get the job done there. Back on Damien Cairns after he made that small mistake, green wide at turn number 7. Got the job done there at turn number 10 at the hairpin, and hopefully he can try and pull away from Damien Cairns. And no one's really troubling Scott Gamble at the moment, but it's really on for P number 2 at the moment between these two.
I'll tell you what, with these guys battling, they dropped a second to everyone else at this point in time. So be a little bit careful, remembering that Michael Quain in P4 has got less fuel on than everybody else, so he should be an absolute rocket ship at this point in time, and it is one of the faster cars. So he is making time up, but I don't think he's going to make enough time up. We're going to drop back to that next battle pack in the top 10 again. This is between Vander Crane, Lewis, and Sharp, I believe, yet again. It's Greg Sharp, sorry, my apologies, and Ty Burn in behind. Is with Chad Lewis sitting in P9, is just a few seconds up the road from these guys. It's difficult because you're looking for apexes and you're looking to see what you can really see around the car. It's a difficult one. There's a lot of blind corners where you're looking down and over a crest to try and spot your turn-in markers, your braking markers, and the elevation of the track. We talked about what it does to the car, but it's also the visibility for the drivers is so crucial. It's even worse when you're boxed in behind another car.
Yeah, certainly the elevation change we noted before, like we said, definitely affects the handling of the race car, but like you just touched on, Scott, the visibility, try to pick your apexes out, and especially if you haven't done too many laps of this track, being a new track and not probably a more popular V8 track, so I don't think many people would have done laps on this prior to this week preparing for this race, and it certainly takes a little while just to prepare and get ready for this track as we go back to Mark Duggan. He's trying to get the move done on Jeff Thomas by the looks. He's P16, Mark Duggan. He's certainly turned out some pretty good lap times trying to fight his way back through the field. He's only 5 seconds off the 10th place car, so certainly it's going to make it pretty difficult with this track, pretty limited overtaking, but hopefully he can try and salvage a half-decent result after a great start to the night. Unfortunately, that pit stop penalty has just really derailed his race.
Yeah, it's really disappointing from Duggan because I was sitting here, I was getting excited to take to another first-time winner. It's not going to be the case, unfortunately, tonight for Mark Duggan. Well, I mean, it still could be the case, but it's going to take an absolute nightmare for just about all the cars ahead for that to present itself as an opportunity. Jeff Thomas is defending quite stoutly. You've got to say, car is parked in a really nice spot from the JWM Esports driver. It's going to be a tricky task to get that move done. I'd say he's going to be banked up there for an extended period of time. The best thing, though, that can really play itself into these guys is if you have a look through the front of the camera shot, they're actually starting to close in on Dan Hall and Travis Hunt.
Yeah, certainly. And Dan Hall, we go on the Zoom feed, look at the 462 machine. A very nice setup there for Daniel Hall, the ERT machine, closing right on the back of Travis Hunt. He's sort of broken away from Jeff Thomas and Mark Duggan, and Dan Hall's trying to put the pressure back on Travis Hunt for P number 13. They're trying to catch onto the back of the Van der Crane to Greg Sharp battle.
Yeah, have a look at that setup. That's really cool. Oh, hang on. There's positions that have swapped just down the road, actually, because I think Travis Hunt has gotten ahead of Dean Hall. Yep. It might be the next cars down the road because it's getting tight. I tell you what, it is getting extremely tight for a bunch of these guys. And Mark Duggan's just got through on Jeff Thomas as well, so there's multiple cars starting to make moves over the last couple laps. It's finally starting to come together, and then keep your eyes down the road because not only is one set of moves happening, we've now got another battle pack that's starting to shuffle itself around, positions changing. Ty Byrne is doing a phenomenal job with where he is at this point in time. He started P11, is P11. Have a look at Van der Crane, though, who's managed to grab that 10th spot.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, Greg Sharp has lost 2 spots there. He was 10th position just a lap ago. He's down to P12, unfortunately, but still a really good run for Greg Sharp. He's still right on the back of the battle pack here, and Van der Crane moved up into that 10th spot at the moment, and these guys are really fighting hard just past the halfway point of this race. Still a long way to go. We've got about 27 laps remaining in this race. A long way to go on these tyres, and these guys are fighting really, really hard. Hammer and Tongers. Van der Crane in the 180 makes a little mistake there, runs wide at turn 1.
Yeah, it's a couple of different lines for the turn 1, turn 2 complex, but I can tell you, Mark Duggan has made nearly a full second up out of Travis Hunt, so he's going to arrive there in just a few moments. Dan Hall is only just ahead of Travis Hunt, and this entire battle pack in this latter stages of the top 10 is really starting to showcase itself as the place to be. And if you're a Ken Latham and Damien Cairns fan, we touched on them a little bit earlier on in the piece, I can tell you they're still only separated by a couple tenths. So battles are plenty right around the circuit. There's another battle pack as well from 18th, which is Chris Miller through Robert Crydale, Chad Vigor, Hallel Cesar, and I believe it also contains Stuart Hall and Dean Flavel as well. So again, this has been another track where we've seen extended little chains of cars. Normally, you'd be used to seeing that at more street-style circuits, where it's really difficult to get the overtakes done. Cars are in close proximity, people sort of back each other up. But Rudskogen Motorsenter is creating this tight pack racing as well.
Really been a feature of this series so far, Scott. Lots of battle packs throughout the field. We're not just seeing everyone break away and drive on their own for the whole race. There's always been battle packs wherever you look. Up front, middle of the pack, battling for a top 5, top 10. Even the guys battling for 20th and 30th. There's always something going on in this V8 Vet series, and that's why I've loved broadcasting it, because there's always something going on. There's been some great battles so far, all series, and especially tonight as well. It's been some great racing.
I'm looking at, I've got my own personal track map that I like to run, so I've got a second set of data going on and around this one. I can tell you, the only cars that are out and on their own at this point in time, well, Scott Gamble, he's out on his own, but he's got a little bit of lap traffic for company. Then it's going to be, Latham's got through on Van der Crane by the look of things as well. And is he going to make that one stink? It is, yeah. So it's, sorry, my apologies. It's The 4th and 5th place cars, Michael Quain and John Latham, have swapped positions now as well. So Quain is going to get relegated back down to 5th place. John Latham moves himself forwards, and that's going to allow a little bit of time to be dropped to the battle packs in behind that one. So moves keep getting made off camera. But yeah, back to what we were saying about the cars racing themselves all sort of night long instead of being out and isolated and on their own. Gamble's about the only guy. There's P17 at this point in time, which is Christian Smart. He's broken away from the pack in behind him, but he's starting to make time on the group up ahead. Other than that, there aren't any cars that are separated. Everyone else has got a partner.
Yeah, certainly there's been some fantastic racing tonight. Everyone's really close-knit and tight racing, and always got someone to race with in battle, which always makes it exciting as a driver and as a broadcaster as well.
Big shout out to Braden Martin, who's just joined us over in the YouTube chat as well. Took your seat last week. He loved life from Road America. Kept throwing US Open wheel car references at me all night about the tracks in America. So good shout out to him. He goes back to work as a school teacher this week. I don't know how he puts up with kids all day. That's not something I can do. I barely put up with race car drivers, and they can be school children at the best of times.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, best wishes to Braden Martin first week back at school. That'll certainly be a hard gig, but very rewarding as well.
And, well, it's going to settle ourselves in once more from Damien Cairns. He's in P3. There's pace in this car. He's doing a great job. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is not where he's going to finish the race at this point in time. I don't think. No, sorry, my apologies, Michael Quain. So Cairns is worried. My apologies. Wrong car. They've got a similar last names. No, it's Michael Quain that was the driver that needed to push on a fair way. He's got 17 seconds worth of fuel that he needs to save. Basically, not going to happen. No way, Jose. Never going to happen in the history of your life. And he would only be a couple laps away from having to pit yet again, you would nearly say, which would put him at third race distance. 21, and then 20 to home. Be expecting that from Michael Quain? Oh, yeah. Something's happened for car 49 as well as Stuart Hall.
Try and pick up what happened there on Stuart Hall.
It's Halil Cesar. He's having some connection issues to the server at this point in time. So no, it's no incident that's actually going on. There's just a driver that's blinking. Difficult to drive around, particularly Brady. I mean, you're a dirt driver, so for you that's incredibly difficult. Where you're trying to screw your head around hard to the left-hand side when you're turning in circle sideways.
Oh yeah, it does make it very difficult when you're doing dirt racing on the sim and someone's blinking because you try and pass someone, or at least try and place where you want to put your car, because you only got a split decision where you only do like 10 to 12 second lap times, so it makes it very difficult when someone you can't see is in front of you. So yeah, it makes it very difficult.
Well, we are now closing in on that 2/3 race distance throughout the night. It's been a green flag race all the way through, so I don't know what somebody said to these drivers, but it certainly worked after last week. Of course, I can't forget, it really brings a little bit of a tear to my eye that your previous series champion managed to miss the shift and a blown engine. When you're a driver of the level that some of these guys are, sometimes it's just something simple that we've done wrong, and I think a lot of these drivers have taken note from last week and just made a little bit of gain, a little bit of a fix. Oh, Crydale wiggles the car out of turn number 2. That is going to prevent a huge opportunity. Car's going to get down the inside. Job done. Not even close.
A good move there from Robert Crydale there on Chad Vigor. Sorry, Chad Vigor got the job done on Crysdale. So great job there for Chad Vigor. Bit of a recovery drive we've seen in the wars earlier. So it looks like Mark Duggan has got by Travis Hunt for P number 14. So Mark Duggan back on the charge. We see him about P17, P18, and probably about 5-6 seconds off this battle pack. He's now right in that battle pack, up to 14th, and he's only about 4 seconds off P10. So Mark Duggan certainly showing that pace that he showed earlier on to qualify P3 and lead the race early, and he's certainly trying to put a charge back on through the field.
I can tell you what, just the last couple of laps, he's been just about the fastest car on track. That time, gets an overtake done, so it takes a little bit away from the lap time, but even so, he only loses 1/10 of a second to Dan Hall ahead of him. He is resurging. If you've ever seen the shots of Greg Murphy saying 5 minutes and getting annoyed, imagine if it was only 40 seconds. You don't have the time to go and sit in a porta potty in the back of a garage. You only have time to sit in the car, go, man, that was really silly of me, and then you got to get back out there and do it. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do when you've made a mistake like that, when you've been in a phenomenal spot like Mark Duggan has. Mentally, that takes a lot away from the driver, but some of them, they're just able to put it aside, Brady.
Yeah, Stanley, I think Mark Duggan has done that. He could have capitulated his race and made quite a few mistakes when he came back out after that penalty, but he's certainly been driving very well and making very calculated moves and risk-free as well. So he's certainly doing a really good job. He's right on the back of Dan Hall already, trying to get past the 462 machine, and Dan Hall will be trying to look ahead to Greg Sharp, but he'll also have to look in the rearview mirror for Mark Duggan because he's flying at the moment.
Yeah, look at the wheel work from Dan Hall. That's him looking forwards. At the top of his screen, you see what the drivers get to look behind them. That's a virtual mirror. It gives you a view a little bit like that. And right now, the driver of the 864 is just about filling that camera. Look through the wing. You see the car coming at you. It's quite quick. And I tell you what, something's just happened to Talyancic because he just said there was a huge moment in the middle of the track. It sounds like he just got a little bit of gas. There's a car going backwards. Was that Stephen Banks? It was. Stephen Banks out of turn number 1-2. That was a lapped car, so that's actually not too bad. That's okay. But the cars that nearly got affected were the cars up the front. No, Banks is off and running again. So there'll be no safety car. They will get through without a safety car.
Yeah, it just looks like Banks just lost the rear end coming on the exit of turn 2 there, and very fortunate not to get in the way or affect anyone's race too much. Unfortunately, a bit of damage for Banks, but like I said, he is one lap down, so unfortunately it's really not going to affect the results too much at this point.
No, but I think we need to go back and potentially see if we can try and grab a replay of it, because I can tell you what, Nickel and Talyancic will both be holding their breath for a few moments. That much is certainly for sure, so we'll get you that one if and when we can. How about this battle pack just outside the top 10, though? From Ty Byrne now in P number 11, it ranges all the way through to Jeff Thomas in P16. And for the guys that was just in behind this, it was Christian Smart, Chris Miller. They've now got by Vigor. Both of those guys have got by, and Chris Miller's starting to charge on in P18 on towards the 999 of Christian Smart. So they won't take too long. So it's been Vigor who's the cork of the bottle a little bit further back. But we'll stay on board with the battle pack on your screen at this point in time. Byrne is struggling in terms of those tires. You can see him up ahead. Greg Sharp is now starting to go a little bit backwards and come back to Dan Hall, and you can just sense the urgency starting to come out of Mark Duggan. He's got 20 laps now to really get this thing inside the top 10, and he's going to need just about all of them.
Yeah, certainly, and Duggan's certainly trying to get the move done on these cars ahead. Looks like Tyburn just might be holding up, might actually be Sharp that's holding up. Tyburn's cleared out just a couple of car lengths. Greg Sharp looks like he's just holding up Dan Hall and Mark Duggan in behind him. So look for a move from Dan Hall or even Mark Duggan. Try to get the move done because it looks like they're just getting held up just a little bit.
Here comes Duggan. Yeah, Duggan's really sniffing under that rear wing of Dan Hall now. So he'll be the driver. But you've seen the pace come out of him. He's on the aggress. Look down the inside. Look at those flames shoot out the left-hand side exhaust pipes. That is a fire-breathing Mark Duggan right now. Those flames, they may as well be coming straight from the helmet visor.
Yeah, certainly Duggan's definitely got his eyes forward, trying to get more spots. He's Ty Byrne as well. He's sort of just dropping off a little bit.
Michael Quain's just come to the pit lane. So the car that needed a pit has now a pit. He's jumped out of that one. He's only got a short fill though, so he should get in, probably get tyres. The fuel he's going to grab will cover the tyres just. He's going to feed himself back in around 22nd, it looks like, if he's off the jacks. Hopefully no speeding penalty for the driver that was just up inside your top 5. Driver the 57 for Michael Quain. So we'll keep you an update as he rejoins. Yeah, he's going to rejoin in 22nd, just in front of the battle pack at 23rd. So there is actually a little bit of gain there from Michael Quain. It's actually putting him in a really nice spot. And now he'll have fresh rubber to get on. He's actually going to rejoin right in behind that battle pack. But look at the battle pack on screen that continues to grow. Duggan is getting urgent. He needs to get by Dan Hall so that he has an opportunity to grab the next cars in the queue. Is it going to be at turn number 10? He was close enough on the exit there of 8 and 9. No, not quite. Still trying to get down the inside. Look at how difficult it is to hang on to these guys in the battle pack. Everyone's getting the draft here, Brady. There's no way that you can sort of just elbow your way through. You've got more cars to overtake, and that risks a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, certainly. You don't want to do anything to risk a penalty. Try and get your elbows
here we
out
go.
too much. A little bit of a wide there from Dan Hall. Makes a little mistake, but gets the drive traction off the exit, and he will cover off Mark Duggan for the time being.
So it was a quicker line from Mark Duggan with better drive off the exit. If you're going to set up an overtake, you're going to have to carry a line like that. But is that going to present an opportunity for Duggan? That's what you've got to keep in the back of your mind. If you're Dan Hall, he needs to find drive somewhere. Tyburn, all the way on the right-hand side of the track. He's trying to break the toe to these guys. He wants to get away. He wants to settle in. He's got P10 at this point in time, and he wants to run away with it. But that horde of angry Hornets in behind him, they really just do not want to let it get away. So difficult to line up the pass. You're going nowhere. That is Michael Quain after serving his second stop of the night. He is now back all the way down into, grab it here in a few moments, 20th. 25th? Sorry, it is 25th. It's on screen now, but he's got fresh rubber. And the lap times with all of these guys, well, they're capable of doing mid to low 20s. Well, now they're all the way back inside the 22s, mid to late 22s. 2 seconds worth of fall off. So that gives Quain a ton of opportunity here. Tries to get the nose in there down underneath the 77 of McCune. McCune's not had a great night, and he might just be better off getting out of the way. It might present some opportunities up ahead, but he wants to hang on to that spot. He's had to fight. He's had to battle. He's had to try and claw his way back through on an uneasy night. And now it's going to be Quain that tries to take something else off of him.
We'll certainly have to see if Michael Quain can make up any ground at all after doing that two-stop strategy. He's fallen down to 25th, like you said, but hopefully he can make up some ground with some fresh rubber. And these guys are battling very Dan Hall on the back of Greg Sharp, right on the rear bumper, and Mark Duggan there as well, Travis Hunt. These guys are still going at it. They've been going at it for about 10 laps, it feels like. We've still got about another 17 to go, so these guys are battling it out for a good duration as Hall has another look. Duggan has a look. This is great racing, Scott.
Oh, you think this is difficult? Try being some of those Dunlop tyres that are on board at the moment. They are struggling to keep these cars going in the right direction. They're getting worked over left, right, and then down and up some more hills. Mark Duggan still looking for an opportunity, and Travis Hunt is now nearly making contact with the rear bumper of the 864 driver. He's still looking for an opportunity to present itself from Dan Hall. They're all getting momentum in different bits and pieces of the track. That's the view back now as you look back at the Travis Hunt JWM Motorsports car, nearly into the rear bumper of Dan Hall. These guys, a blanket. Well, it's not big enough. It's not small enough to really throw over these guys. A tissue. It's still not small enough. Get a 50-cent coin out. That's going to be a little bit more like it.
Even Travis Hunt, was weaving down the front straight, trying to distract Mark Duggan, trying to get a move done. These guys are just so even right now, and especially on this racetrack where it's a little bit more difficult to overtake, it's just making it hard for these drivers at the moment, and no one can get anything done, so we'll just have to wait because there's a big cork in the ball and something's going to break very soon.
Yeah, you just got to get a nose in there. As soon as one driver gets a nose in beside another car, it's all going to kick off. It is going to be an absolute melee. That is the 21 machine of Taliancic, and he is still attempting to track down the driver that is Tim Nicol in the 23 car. You've got 3 cars on the road that have actually got 20 in their number. So 24 of John Latham in P4, 23 of Tim Nicol in P5, and 21 Taliancic in P6. Apparently, the higher in the 20s you are tonight, the more you finish, the further you finish up the grid. Quain has now got the job done, one of many for Michael Quain. He's going to start working over some tyres up ahead of him. He'll have pace late, but there's only going to be up to about 22nd that he's going to be able to cut his way through. After that, there's a huge gap up to 21st. So two-stop strategy has not worked for Quain.
Yeah, certainly a bold strategy call from Michael Quain as we still go back to Mark Duggan on board. These guys, like I said a lap ago, they're still going at it. It looks like no one's willing to give in. No one's making any big mistakes right now to open the door, and everyone's just going to be biding their time at the moment. I don't think there's going to be any silly moves come from this, but man, Mark Duggan must be just a little bit annoyed. He's got so much pace and he can't do anything with it.
Can't show it, can't do anything for it. Everyone will remember this race and what a banger it's been for the Kumho Vets. Kumho Tyres Vets. Well, finally a mistake from Dan Hall, and that has allowed Travis Hunt through as well. So 2 spots lost from Dan Hall. A fraction deep on the run down into turn number 3. Just a fraction. Squats himself wide. Now Duggan's got to look at Greg Sharp. Maybe he's got a little bit more pace over Greg Sharp. Maybe he can get a little bit closer to that driver. These two are going to continue to go at it. Dan Hall's got this job back, and he'll try and hang on to it. No, sorry, that's actually Jeff Thomas that's in behind him. So he's in the sandwich of JWM cars now. So that's why I thought it might have been Travis Hunt that he managed to get back by. No, it's Jeff Thomas as the teammate.
I might have to take some responsibility for that mistake from Dan Hall. I was just saying that no one's made a mistake yet, and as soon as I stopped talking, poor Dan Hall made a mistake. So that's just part of racing, though. It's going to happen. These guys have gone 20-plus laps, nearly 25 laps on these set of tyres, and they still got, 13, 14 to go. So they're really stretching the tyre life on these race cars, and unfortunately just one little mistake. Probably missed his braking mark.
Here we go.
His braking performance as we got Mark Duggan right on the rear bumper of Greg Sharp once again. And looks like Ty Burn had a bit of a bad exit.
Shows nose from Greg Sharp is going to look to defend it a little bit deep down here. He presents an opportunity again. Duggan's not quite close enough. Now Sharp all the way to the left-hand side of the road. He's got to get that car return back to the left-hand side for the next left-hander, the right-hand king. This is Duggan starting to crawl all over him. A little bit wider. He's got a little bit of space and he uses all of it. Backs himself all the way back up to Travis Hunt. Was looking to try and get the car in there. Little bit of a mistake. That's the first mistake, the first cracks I'm starting to see out of Mark Duggan. This has been an epic performance from every one of these drivers. Travis Hunt closes in again. Look at the eyes. They are searching for every opportunity. The cat's eyes. He is crawling all over the rear bumper of Mark Duggan now. Greg Sharp, how's he going to hold these guys off? Because he's also looking for a way past Ty Burn. Duggan's there. Nearly gets the nose in and under. Greg Sharp. There is nothing underneath it. We said it was a 50-cent coin a couple laps ago. Make it smaller. Now it's a tenner.
Apparently everyone's Greg Sharp looking down the inside of Ty Burn. That's the first big move we've seen out of this battle pack. And Ty Burn, who's maintained 10th in this race for so long, Greg Sharp got the run off the last corner, got the job done, and that might just open the floodgates for Duggan and Travis Hunt to get on by as well.
Well, it might even open it up for Dan Hall in behind Jeff Thomas. Remember, this battle pack, the more these guys grow and the more they're going to squabble, the more they're going to fight. Hall is down the inside there of Travis Hunt. He thinks he's got the pace to get back by. He's made one little mistake. Look at the lights. That says how annoyed he was. He got cut off. He got a little bit chopped across the nose. No conversation to race control, just a little bit of showing his annoyance. I don't think that Travis Hunt has earned himself any brownie points there, and if there was a mistake made, I think the next time he's going to get finished off.
Yeah, certainly, and it looks like Ty Burn just struggling a little bit at the moment. He's already lost about 3 or 4 car lengths to Greg Sharp, and Mark Duggan looks really antsy behind him. Can't quite get the job done there at turn number 12. He'll look at 13, 14, try and get a good exit into turn 1. Might try and replicate what Greg Sharp just did a lap ago.
Yeah, we said the floodgates, when they opened, they would open in a big, big way. And now it's Ty Burn. That's the cork in the bottle. He got a little bit away from this battle pack. Then he came back to them. The tyre life from Burn has not been good. We saw him fade in the first hit. Duggan shows the nose. He's close. Not quite close enough. Bit of run through turn 1 for Ty Burn now. He'll try and settle. Grabs the brakes. He's struggling for drive. Oh, there's a bump and run there from Duggan. And Ty Burn will hang on to it by a slim margin. This might open the door for Travis Hunt. As we look backwards, Hunt is closing. Hunt is there. Dan Hall has dropped a little bit back off of these guys, and they'll maintain their positions another lap. But you're starting to get the sense that time is expiring for Mark Duggan, and he's got to find a way through soon.
Yeah, so a 13 to go, and Duggan that little bit of a contact here as he nearly gets him again into the back of Ty Burn. So Duggan getting very antsy. He's got some pace to burn still. He just can't get the job done anyway, but he's got to be careful because Travis Hunt is right on his back bumper. He looks racy as well. This is absolutely fantastic racing here at Rudskogen.
I don't know about you guys at home, but I have not been able to take my eyes off of this one. Haven't even looked around. I can tell you Scott Campbell's still got it. At this point in time, Ken Ladder's got control over P number 2, and there's a fair way back to P3. Oh, Sharp has now made a mistake. So now he'll slot back into third of this pack. He's back to 12. Ty Burn's got control. He's back to 10. Burn runs it wide. They're all struggling for traction under the rear tyres. Who's going to do it? Does he have to cover the run down into turn number 1? He does cover, but Duggan's right there. I think Duggan's going to go for it in turn 3. Sharp deep down into turn number 1. Hangs onto it just barely from Travis Hunt. Now Hunt will get the drive through the middle of turn number 2. Who's going to get the run off the exit? Duggan is there. Duggan is crawling all over. Here comes Hunt. Hunt is looking for an opportunity. He's on the hunt. Is he going to get it down the inside? Mark his prey. Send it? No. Sharp will hang on with the sharpest blade for a moment. Now Duggan's down the inside. Ty Burn's wide at turn number 5. And here comes Mark Duggan. Gets the nose ahead of Ty Burn for the first time. Runs a little bit wide. Job done. Can he set sail now? He grabs P10. This was your race leader in the early portions of it. He's got the pace. Gets a nudge. Burn is struggling. Burn cannot get that thing turned in. Here goes Duggan. Finally clears him. Oh, I think it's about to kick off. And we've still got 11 down to go. Dan Hall's going to send it down the inside now at Greg Sharp. You blink and you'll miss it. You cannot take your eyes away from this. This is compelling motor racing from the Kumho V8 Vets.
I don't think Mark Duggan has worked harder in his life for a P10 in this race. Fantastic work. He set it up really, really nicely. And we even see Dan Hall. He got past Travis Hunt. So Travis Hunt, he's gone from P12 back to P14. And I look at that Greg Sharp moment 2 laps ago, and I think he had a slowdown penalty and intentionally ran wide to serve that slowdown because there was no lock brakes, no nothing. So I think Sharp had an off track earlier in that lap and had to serve the slowdown.
Well, does Duggan set sail here? He's put a second over Ty Burn. So Burn was holding these guys up quite massively. Sharp got clear. And now he's got to do it all over again. The first time was hard enough. Now he's got to do it once more. How far's the gap, though, for Mark Duggan? He's got to make 7 seconds up to Matt van der Crane, who is crawling all over the rear bumper of Chad Lewis. And there's a battle in there with David Kirby as well. Finally, you look up. Did you forget that there was 30 other cars going on the track? Because I certainly did for about 10 laps there. My word. Oh, that was awesome. Oh, blood pumping, Brady. How are you doing?
I'm struggling trying to get my voice back. It's been unreal racing. Is Latham now around the outside of Cairns? Did Cairns just have a slowdown penalty because he did not hold him up at all? He just let him straight by.
Whether or not Cairns is struggling, maybe he underfueled the car. Is there a fuel issue potentially for Cairns? He's got 10 laps, so he's got a fair amount of time to get it back. But John Latham is going to sneak through and put that car back up into the top 3. We saw a strong showing from John Latham last round out at Road America as well. He was right there in that top 4. So this is the last pit stops that came through. It was a 31.484, so there was a little bit shorter than a few other cars. A fair bit shorter than a few other cars. So maybe some math has been run wrong. Math has been done incorrectly there from Cairns, and now Nichols starting to come on. So yeah, he's 6 seconds quicker through the pit lane. Has he done some sums wrong? Did he not carry a 1?
I think so, because remember before, only about maybe 10 laps ago, we've been so entrenched in the Mark Duggan and Corey battle that Damien Cairns was right with Ken Latta battling for P2 in this race. He's now 8 seconds behind Latta, so certainly I think someone's having a big disco party there. But yeah, it looks like Damien Cairns.
Can we go back? We need to go back, though. We've got to grab another slot on with Greg Sharp, Ty Burn, Dan Hall, and that battle pack again, because it's got even closer. Oh, here we go. All those make contact with Burn. Now Burn is firing up those rear tyres. Sharp's got through, but look at Burn. The cork in the bottle's return. Now down the inside and very wide. In one ear, out the other. Dan Hall loses 2 spots. Now Ty Burn is still struggling to pull that car up. When did he pit? He pit on lap 26. He's actually got the freshest tyres of the whole bunch.
That what we call in dirt racing from Dan Hall was an unsuccessful slide job trying to get past them 2 cars. He couldn't quite get pulled up, sailed it in there really hard on the entry of the corner and couldn't quite get the job done. Unfortunately, now he's back with Jeff Thomas, but
that's Anthony Visma. That's Anthony Visma. Take your eyes off of that one. That one does not count. That's not relevant to our race. That driver of the number 6's night has gone from bad to worst. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, sort of. Does he get home? Does he get back to the pit lane? Because there is damage to repair from Anthony Visma. And look at that. That graphic tells the story. Started P2, best qualifying attempt of the season, looked to have real pace, ran wide in corner 1 and 2, and it went all downhill from there. And then uphill again, and then back downhill again, and then back through the pit lane.
Unfortunately, yeah, Anthony Visma's night is done. He's got a blown engine, so he'll call it back to the pits and park it up for the evening. Unfortunate for our front row sitter earlier in the race. But back on screen, we're going to Chad Lewis on the back of David Kirby. This is for position number 7 and 8. We haven't really watched these guys for a while because we've had such great battles throughout the pack, and David Kirby currently in front, but looks like Chad Lewis has a little bit of pace, and not far behind is Matt Vanderkrane. So these guys are really turning it on in the final laps here for P number 7.
I can tell you as well, Michael Taliancic is starting to make a ton of time up on Damien Cairns, I believe it was, who was trying to fuel save, and I think Latham's got Bryce. So Tim Nichols now starting to really close in on Damien Cairns. He's dropping a second a lap, so we'll have to keep that in the back of our mind for Cairns. He's got a lot of fuel to save by the looks of it. But if you keep your eyes up, it's going to be Taliancic and Nickel that are starting to really close in on him. The other drivers we sort of got to keep an eye on is Duggan, as he starts to take chunks of time out of the cars that are ahead of him, because they are battling as well. And Duggan is still on potentially. There is an opportunity of a 5th place finish for him. He's got a lot of work to do and a lot of things are going to go right. But that driver has done a phenomenal job at the 864. And have a look at Tim Nickel. Look at the time he is taking out of Damien Cairns. He's in trouble, the driver of the number 88.
I think the margin will be closer again this lap, where we might have to check it out as Tim Nickel will cross the line. That last lap with Damien Cairns at 23.1, Tim Nickel 22.6, so another half second taken out of the gaps, down to 5.5 seconds. So Damien Cairns surely must be on a massive fuel save. We've seen the numbers earlier, it suggests to that, and Tim Nickel, he's pushing on for a top 4 here.
Yep, so Nichols in the hunt. He's trying to go forwards as well. And I tell you what, for the driver of the number 8, maybe he wishes he could drive a, what do they call them? The old car with the flex capacitor in them. I forgot the name of it. Normally I'm quite good. Back to the Future, drive it at 88 miles an hour. Maybe that's what the 88's for. Go back in time and redo that pit stop decision.
Yeah, potentially Damien Cairns just looks like he's just, like you said earlier, Scott, maybe just a little bit of an error with the numbers in the pit stop, and looks like hopefully for his sake he can hold on for at least a top 5 result, but certainly he's dropped off massively compared to even John Latham in the last couple of laps, already 5 seconds.
Yes, that's massive. He's got a long climb ahead of him. Lucky for him, it's only 6 laps left to go. Hopefully he's saved enough fuel. Hopefully he's made himself relevant in this race once again. Looking at Dave Kirby now in P7, defending from Chad Lewis, and Matt Vanderkrane is still just sitting in the back of that one. And Duggan has now finally got that gap under 4 seconds. He is absolutely on a charge. I reckon, unfortunately, he's going to be 2 or 3 laps shy. Lewis makes a mistake. Now Vanderkrane's in the balance as well. And don't forget, Ty Byrne is still ahead of Travis Hunt, Jeff Thomas. Greg Sharp's got through, and Sharp has now started to put some time over those guys as well. So the tyre battle in behind these guys is relevant, and these guys now have done their largest number of laps. Remember, they pit on and around 24 to 26. They have done nearly 40 laps on these tyres, and they were screaming after 25.
Certainly, I just had a look. Mark Duggan was 7/10 quicker that lap than David Kirby in P7, so he's certainly on the move at the moment. Unfortunately, he's only got 6 laps to try and make it in, but I reckon by the end of the race, he's going to be right on the back of Vanderkrane, Lewis and Kirby. He might even get to P number 7 by the race's end.
Yeah, there's an opportunity in the water. It may threaten. Nichols still trying to take some more time out of Cairns. We've got to keep an eye on that in the background as well. Cairns has picked up the pace just a little bit, though. He may have got that fuel number into a really nice spot. Look at those numbers. Half a second, 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second from Duggan. He's really trying to hunt down that battle. He'll be absolutely furious with himself for the speeding on pit lane. Didn't need to do it. Just needed to get in, get out. He would have been on the podium. That's all it took. And now he's driven a phenomenal race. There's been very few mistakes. We've been on board with Duggan a lot of the time. And to go at this pace, for this long, with this few mistakes, awesome drive from Duggan.
Yeah, certainly it's been a fantastic recovery. We checked in on him when he came back, and he was about 18th, 19th from memory. And he's certainly done it the hard way. That battle pack again with Sharp, Byrne, Hunt, Thomas, Dan Hall. That was the best racing we've seen all season.
Speaking of that battle pack, we should probably jump back on and have another look because Byrne is continuing to hold up Hunt. He's covering at every corner now. Covering at every corner. There are 5 laps left for this little battle pack, and it cannot come soon enough for Ty Burns. He is struggling. He's been struggling for about 10 to 15 laps. Sharp has finally got through, and he's got clear now. You can see that next car down on the road. Now it's Hunt's turn. Has he burned off of too much of his tyre? Dan Hall's slipped back in behind these guys. His tyres look like they might have finally lost a little bit of grip, and Byrne wiggles it once more. Still trying to get through. Michael Quain's just made contact with somebody as well.
We'll try and have a quick look at that Michael Quain incident in a minute. We'll stay on with Travis Hunt though, and Travis Hunt still right on the back of Ty Byrne and can't quite get it done. He's got some pace, we've said that before, but very hard to get an overtake done here, and gets right on the back bumper again.
Yeah, it's a good run now from Hunt. Is he going to cover? Is he going to leave the door open? Door is left open. Down the inside from Hunt. They make contact. Both of them will rotate. No, it's just going to be Hunt that goes around, and it's going to be Ty Byrne that manages to hang on to it. A difficult one. I think if you're going to call that one into race control, in fact, I might not even do it. No, Hunt's going to have it reviewed. And I don't hate this because I think Byrne may have turned in. That's going to be critical for Ty Byrne because if he's got a penalty, particularly if it's a redress, it takes him out of these battles.
Yeah, so a very tough call to make that one. I'm just having a quick look at it myself now, and it looks like Hunt was nearly up to the B pillar on Ty Byrne, and he just maybe turned in a little bit early. It's pretty hard to tell early on. We'll leave that with race control and leave the difficult decisions with them because I wouldn't be wanting to make that decision.
Yeah, I've done some race controlling in the past, and boy, some of them really make it difficult. Byrne is continuing to wiggle the rear end of that car, but here comes Mark Duggan with 3 laps left to go. He is all but there. If he takes half a second out of these guys, a lap, he will get to them on the last lap. He won't have enough time to make an overtake, so he will get to them. It's going to be tight. He continues to close that margin. He is really starting to pull in Dave Kirby. And we'll have to keep that number you see on the right-hand side of your screen. That's the interval between drivers. So from Dave Kirby to Chad Lewis is the 0.3 of a second you see next to Lewis's name. From Lewis to Van der Crane, the 0.7 of a second next to his name. I can tell you Ty Byrne is really continuing to struggle as well. And there's been another half spin, and I think it's Jeff Thomas that went around that time as he checked up to get out of the way. So now it's just Dan Hall who will be all over the rear bumper of Ty Byrne. So Ty Byrne's shaking off a few of those guys that were chasing it.
Certainly Ty Byrne trying to hold off Dan Hall, and Dan Hall is having a look and can't quite get anything done there. So, but the big thing at the moment is Mark Duggan, how much ground he has made up. He's absolutely flying, and he's really close to the back of Matt Van der Crane at the moment.
And here comes Dan Hall. I think you've got to show the nose if you're Dan Hall. You know that you've got pace. Look at the covering, though, from Ty Byrne. Look at how much braking that Hall has to do. Huge wiggles now from the driver of the 64, Ty Byrne. He is working that rear bumper over. It is getting a wiggle, left, right. You've got a feel for probably the struts either side of that rear wing. They are having a huge time trying to keep that rear end under control. Oh! Speedway style, Brady Baldwin house the slide.
I rate that a 10 out of 10. That was an absolutely epic drift from Ty Byrne. For him to keep his foot in it too and hang it all out. He's going to get back down the inside of Daniel. He had his own moment, so we might have to try and get a replay of that maybe post-race as we're only a couple laps to go. But man, Ty Byrne, as we go back to Taliancic and Damien Cairns have a battle.
Yep, so this is the driver that's still trying to fuel save. Cairns, he is hugely in the pot. You hear the drivers talk about it, the pot. It is that reserve tank. You flick the fuel switch over to try and get the fuel pump into a lower position. They have a couple different positions to look at where they can suck the fuel from. It's a lower position within the tank, and for me, Damien Cairns is going to end up in a wing cup style scenario where he's just about out of fuel late in the race. He's struggling. He's let a couple cars go. Nichols through. Taliancic is now through. And here comes Dan Hall trying to get his name on that late position picked up list. And indeed, Greg Sharp may be in the offering as well. Final lap, last lap. Scott Gamble, we haven't talked about him all race. He's got control. He's crossed the start-finish line. He's on the run to home. These guys have got 1.5 to go. There's not a lot of time left in this race, and Dan Hall knows he's got more pace than Tyburn, but can he show it? And can Jeff Thomas tag onto the bumper of this one on the final lap of the race?
Yeah, Dan Hall was certainly trying to make some moves there on the back of Tyburn. Can't quite get it done, but like we said, Scott Gamble, he's taking the white flag, and Damien Cairns, he's fallen right back. I think he's out of fuel. I think Damien Cairns is done.
Well, he just looked at it. Tyburn let him through. Had a huge slide. Dan Hall's got through. Damien Cairns is really struggling. I reckon he's only got half of the fuel he needs for this final lap. He is coming back to these guys. We're going to have to keep an eye on how far through the lap he gets, because he's got to make it all the way home.
Yeah,
he's on the clutch. He's out. He's out. The engine's shut off. Cairns is out on the run down to turn 3.
That is a massive moment. He was running only for position number 2 early on. Unfortunately, just a blunder. He just hasn't put enough fuel in the car, and he certainly struggled. It's going to massively hurt his result. But Scott Gamble ran the final corner. We haven't talked about him all night, which is probably a good thing because he's taken the win.
Yeah, Scotty Gamble, nice, clean, consistent. A little bit of a mistake on lap 1, getting that car underway, slotted into P4. He stuck with it. Drivers around either side of him didn't have a great night, and he is the guy that sticks it in there and scores the biggest bank of points. Ken Latham will bring it home in P2, and Ken Latta and John Latham will come home P number 3. It's been a couple of really, really good weeks for John Latham, and now it's going to be Nickel that gets home. Cairns is out of fuel, ladies and gentlemen. He's currently in 15th. And going backwards the whole time, he will not make it back to the start-finish line. He is out at the hairpin in the middle of the lap.
Yeah, unfortunately, Damien Cairns, not the result he wanted, but Mark Duggan, shout out to him, wanted to drive back 3, will end up position number 9 after all that calamity earlier, and he was 40 seconds off the lead. So just imagine that 40-second penalty that he served, where that would have put him at the race's end. So it must be a little bit frustrating for Mark Duggan there.
Yep, and I can tell you, Damien Cairn did not make it. He got to turn 10, he got onto the uphill section immediately after turn 10, and the engine was already off. So as soon as you put that thing on the uphill incline, that was it. Race over from Damien Cairns. Did not get home. The battle for 19th will continue to the line. Crisdale's going to come home in P19. Flavel will be home in P number 20, and Quain on those fresh tyres later on. Did he pick the right strategy? He certainly had a crack, and you got to applaud him for trying. But there's a reason most of the drivers went with a one-stopper here tonight. It's a more successful strategy.
Yeah, certainly. Unfortunately, Michael Quain just didn't quite work out for him, and he certainly had good pace at the end, but I think just with this track and all the track position he lost just sort of ultimately hurt him in the end.
Yep, unfortunate for him. We're going to have a few drivers to talk to throughout the end of things, but my word, somebody find me an oxygen tank. I'm just about out of puff.
Yeah, certainly. That was a very good race, Scott, and no safety cars this week, which is actually very much surprised me on this track, a new track, very tight one, but we'll go to the results. The 543 ERT machine, Scott Gamble will take the win, 8.9 seconds ahead of the Synergy Sim racing machine of Ken Latta. John Latham will round out the podium in the number 24 machine. Tim Nicol and Michael Talianchis will round out the top 5. David Kirby, Chad Lewis, Matt Vanderkrane, Mark Duggan, after that very impressive drive through the field, will end up position number 9, and Greg Sharp will round out the top 10.
Yeah, we'll throw it over to P number 11. Daniel Hall will get the job done over Tyburn on the last couple of laps. Jeff Thomas will just barely get denied. Travis Hunt had chaos late on in the piece. You saw him. He had a crack. It didn't come through for him. He will finish in P14. Chris Miller in 15th. A really good drive once he got by the bottleneck of Chad Vigor. Stuart Hall in 16th. Christian Smart 17th. Chad Vigor after losing a few spots late on. And P18th. Robert Crydale. Reasonable drive from him. Dean Flavel home in 20th.
Michael Quain, the last car that remained on the lead lap. After doing that two-stop strategy that Luke Holland in the chat pointed out before, he'll finish at position number 21. Damien Cairns, unfortunately, was battling for a podium spot earlier in the race. Unfortunately, didn't take up on enough fuel. He'll end up P22. Brenton O'Brien, P23. Then down to Stephen Kennedy. Rod Hollis ran out the top 25. Then followed by Andrew Hoffman, Robert Griffith, Scott McCune, who was in the wars again tonight. He'll finish P28. Rick Vega and Craig Frienduff, that early driver, he'll finish position number 30.
Yeah, there's a few cars way down the list that you really thought that they should have a good night. Anthony Visma, what a run to turn number 1 for Visma. Had pace in qualifying for the first time this season. Wasn't able to convert at 3 laps down. Stephen Banks didn't have a great night either. He pulled out earlier on in the piece. We saw Halil Cesar was on a reasonable drive, had the most positions gain. Unfortunately, internet connection let him down. Darren Crosby received a penalty early on, as well as John King. Shane Evans and Jeff Richardson further down didn't actually make the start of the race. And ladies and gentlemen, that is tonight's race here on Australia Day for the Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans. Look, I think that's our best race in the season so far. And if the way that things have been building to a head over the last couple of weeks, next week is going to be even bigger and better. But before we can get there, we've got a podium to interview. And the man that's on top of the world once more, he puts another race victory in. It's the 543 driver of Scott Gamble. And I tell you what, it puts a smile on my face to see a Scotty back in the podium.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. It was good fun, and happy to be back up here.
Mate, what were the thoughts? Did you know that there was a penalty for the compatriot there early on from Mark Duggan, because he was there, he was testing you early, the pace that he had in that first stint, it was mega, and you were just tracking him down. I thought we were on for an absolute battle of the Titans there, and unfortunately all come unstuck.
Yeah, real shame for Mark. It was really unfortunate. I was looking forward to the second part of that race. I thought maybe we'd got the undercut on him, and then when he didn't appear, I was like, well, what's happened? Has he crashed? Has something happened? And yeah, and then I figured he must have got a pit lane penalty. It was a real shame because Mark had a really good pace, and it was going to be good fun.
Talk to us about that opening lap. It was tricky on the run down into turn number 1. Sean McNamara had issues a couple of weeks ago in terms of getting that thing fired off of the grid. This week it was your turn to have issues on the run to turn number 1. So maybe the lap practice has gone in a little bit too deep. Maybe let's go back to the basics and get the thing off the line.
Absolutely, you've got to get it going to be anywhere. And it was just in the second stage of the clutch and throttle application. Like I do a manual start, so we just got on the revs a little bit too much and spun it up, and a couple of guys, well, 3 of us passed us. Mark got a mega start, and and then on the first lap, I'm not sure whether they got slowdowns coming around turn 8 or not, but there was a bit of a crowd there, and we were able to get through, so that sort of worked out in the end.
Mate, it's been pretty consistent, the top end of the season from you so far. There's been a couple of really, really good races that were strung back to back, and the inclusion of a drop round. Obviously, you weren't able to make the attendance here last week from Road America, but the eyes are forward now and looking on to the rest of the season. Sean McNamara not here tonight. I think it's going to be a really, really close and interesting title race as we continue on through the season. But more importantly, we're starting to see pace out of a number of other drivers that didn't necessarily have it in those first couple rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony Vismar, who put it on P2, he put in an absolute mega lap in quali, and there's a few others, especially coming out of the Taipan team there. They're going really good. So, and then Chad and Lewis are now in ERT up into P7 tonight, so he drove really good as well. So yeah, there is a lot of guys that can on their night. They've got great pace. You know, Kenneth Ladder in second and John in third tonight. Absolute super fast guys, and if you give them an inch, it's all over. So they'll take it from you. But it's really challenging. It's going to be a great season, and especially when Sean comes back in and Greg Favell comes back in, they're really going to push us up here. So it's going to be good fun.
In terms of things next week, we look forward to everyone's favourite track. I mean, there'll probably be a few people out there that'll go, no, I really don't like those walls, but it's Bathurst next week. How's the pace at Bathurst? Because, well, I mean, if anyone in Australia is going to be good at a track in a V8 supercar, it's got to be the Mountain. Are we expecting some surprise guys to jump up from a little bit further down the field and really challenge the top set?
Yeah, I know Sean is going to be absolute fantastic at Bathurst. He's got great pace there, same as Greg. And there is a few others there that, they do turn it on come Bathurst. So I guess our strategy will just try and keep it consistent. It's a long race there. And if we can keep it clean and safe for 300 Ks, I think it is. So, we'll see where we can bring it home. But definitely some stiff competition next round.
Mate, finally, Mega Drive here tonight. Who are the sponsors that make it possible for the Evolution Racing team and Scott Gamble?
Yep. Thanks. Big shout out to Logitech G, our sponsor over at ERT. All the guys at Evolution Racing Team, they they help out. We chat about this race all week, and also to Soldier On. Don't forget we're donating anything from the Logitech G store. If you use the code word ERT in capitals, a little bit comes back to us, and it will be donated to Soldier On to help our veterans and get them back on track. So head over to Logitech G, do that, and thanks to you guys for the broadcast. Actually, really amazing broadcast. I enjoy watching them, and to the admin and to the drivers, Kenneth and John. Well done tonight, and bad luck out to Marcus. That was a shame.
Well, mate, you better go back and watch that broadcast, because I tell you what, Mark Duggan had a mega drive back through the field. It was hard to take your eyes off, so I think you've got some watching tomorrow for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, Scotty Gamble, driver of the 543. Tonight's race winner from the Kumho V8 Veterans race from Rudskogen Motorsenter. We are going to move on to our P number 2 here tonight, and it was a clean and consistent drive, and he's starting to make a real good job of doing this just about every week. It's Ken Latta, mate. That was a difficult race. I think that was quite technical in the pedal box. It's not easy. It's a newer track on iRacing. There's not a lot of history to go off. But, man, look, you got the head down, you got in the right spots early, and you positioned yourself really, really well.
Yeah, I really don't know what happened at the start, but guys were going slow, or I got no idea what was happening right at the start. And I really did fail to be able to sort of hang on to Duggan and Scott in that first stint. And then when we came to the second stint, I changed the whole way I had to drive, obviously, because we had 40-odd laps in one stint, so I was looking after the tyres, and I think that really worked. I was able to get away from Damien Can. And but yeah, the track itself, I hadn't seen it until about 2 days ago, and it was a very highly technical, and there's literally no rest at all. Yeah.
We said at the top of the show, it's a Herman Tilke design truck, much the same vein as Coda, which we'll be going to later on in the season. It's got that feel through it for the second sector. It feels very much like Coda. There's uphill, there's downdale. It's got a little bit of everything here. Workhorse behind the steering wheel. I think he did a good job in terms of that time management. He actually took some time out of Scott Gamble late on in the stint, but he just had that little bit too much, man. But quiet race from your point of view. But hey, it'll take a quiet race if it leads to a P2.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to finally sort of get one in the bag, because I haven't had that much luck in the last few races, but hopefully the season looks a bit more promising from now on.
In terms of things, there was a little bit of a battle. I believe it was John Latham. You guys were going head-to-head there for a while, and then John sort of had a little bit of a mistake. I think we caught you guys as you swapped positions twice on one lap, and then that was sort of the tail end of it.
No, that was with Damien.
That was Damien?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I went off, and then I wanted to take it back straight away, because I had to work quite hard to get the move done to begin with. It's not the easiest track to sort of pass, particularly if the person in front of you is sort of on the similar pace. So yeah, I really wanted to sort of get that in front of him, and then just sort of stick to my plan, obviously looking after tyres and just getting to the end.
Hey mate, when it works out, it works out. It's the opportunity for you to say thank you to all people to make it possible. For Ken Latta, drivers 269 and Synergy Sim Racing.
Yeah, well, of course, thanks. Congratulations to Scott. He really did drive a wonderful race, and John, really sort of kept me honest there in the end. And thanks to Race Control and you guys as well for making this all possible. And of course, thanks to all the boys at SSR and Wave Runner Performance, Smith & Son Innovations, DR Epoxy, DGG Customs, DM Sim Photography, JK Signs, Nolan, and Aftershock PC, and West Ham Mazda, and Too Easy Finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken Latta. Sorry, I've had you and John mixed up the last 2 weeks. I've been saying Ken Latham and John Latta, and it's not the case. It's Ken Latta and John Latham, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being in here. Have a great night, mate. Enjoy the rest of your Australia Day.
All right, thank you so much. Cheers, guys.
Finally, we move on to the third step of the podium. John Latham, driver of the 24. Mate, the second half of the race was pretty cruisy, but that opener, boy, that was a gangbuster once again. 2 weeks in a row, it's been action-packed racing up at the top end of town.
Yeah, first laps were really hectic. I'm not sure what happened down at the hairpin, but yeah, I had a few car contacts, and I wasn't sure what was happening there. But yeah, it was very, very busy, and it's such a mentally draining track. There's just no rest. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way I drove, considering I rocked up for practice tonight and jumped into the race. So that was good, really happy. I think it was a bit lucky. Some other people had a bit of misfortune, like I think Mark Duggan had a bit of an unlucky time, and some of the other guys are obviously off celebrating or doing whatever they're doing today. So yeah.
Hey mate, you can't say that when you've just come up here. You started in P12 and you managed to take away P3. You're still going to be happy with that drive. 9 positions gained, up inside the top 10, deep inside the top 10, indeed on the podium. Look, we've seen over the last couple of weeks that the racing has been hectic. It's all about car positioning, and it's all about using your head a little bit sometimes. What I've seen from you is that you're keen to really make sure that you're getting through to that finish, and they've been strong, consistent finishes. Would you say that's a strong aspect of your racing?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm really wrapped with tonight. Yeah, to finish on the podium, that I'm wrapped with that. I definitely think over the last couple of weeks, I've changed my approach to racing. Before that, I had a few internet issues, and I had a few bingles and a few penalties and stuff. And I'm just going to rock up and just try to finish the race and drive sensible and smart. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it's been going lately.
Well, yeah, I mean, a couple of strong finishes in a row, putting them together week in and week out. I mean, you know, you've really got to say that the changes are coming through. What's next? I mean, next week we go on to Bathurst. Is Bathurst a strong track? There's a lot of guys in the field that do a lot of practice when it comes to Bathurst. They love the track. They really want to get it together. Is it a strong track for you? Maybe it's going to be a weaker track. But then again, it's Bathurst. That's that sensibleness, that driving style that you've just adjusted yourself into. What's the approach going in next week? More of the same. Keep it simple. Nothing stupid.
Yeah, I definitely will be doing the same. I do like Bathurst. Sometimes it does take a bit of practice to gel with the setup around Bathurst and just nail kind of over the top of the hill, especially down the hill. But yeah, we'll rock up and see what happens next week.
Righto, ladies and gentlemen, driver of the 24, John Latham, Shadow Racing car, and P3 for you here tonight, John. Who are the sponsors that make it possible for you?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out to the guys over at Shadow Racing. Yeah, always good. I've got my old man over there and stuff, as well as Ed and that. So, and a couple of new guys, Bruce and Simon. Everyone's having fun and stuff. So that's a really, really positive note. And I'd just like to thank the guys at Racecraft. Johnny's always been a good supporter of myself, and he's a good friend. So, yeah, thanks to Racecraft.
Thank you very much, John, and a big shout out to John Lee if you're listening along over there. I know he always supports a whole bunch of his drivers, does a fantastic job with keeping his guys equipped, and big supporter of his race teams, and does deserve a big round of applause whenever he can get the one. Thank you very much tonight, John Latham. Finishes in P number 3. We'll see you again next week, Johnny.
Thanks very much, guys.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up here from your Kumho Tyres V8 Veterans. We want to say a big shout out as well to all the other sponsors that have made it possible here tonight. Player One Sim Gear, Logitech G, and finally, Isuzu Parramatta. Next round is going to be a longer round, 300 kilometers the distance. That venue, it's iconic in the world of V8 supercars. If you're driving these cars, it's one track that you have to come to grips with very quickly, because you're going to be going there just about every single time you're in the car. Thursday, 2nd of February, first round in February. I tell you what, Brady, we saw some great racing here tonight. Next week, the runs through the chase, fixed setup racing at Bathurst. You don't see a lot of fixed setup racing at Bathurst. Normally very open. Everyone likes a different style of setup, and we head to Bathurst. It's going to ask a lot of questions of these guys.
It's certainly going to produce a lot of close racing with the fixed setup, and if the racing's anything like it was tonight, it's certainly going to be action-packed and some fantastic racing next week at Bathurst.
We hope that you will join us all then. As you've seen tonight, the Kumho V8 Vets, they set the track alight when they come. maybe next week we'll end up with our third round of safety cars from 5. Maybe it'll be green from lights out to flag as it was here tonight. Don't forget to join us again next Thursday from 8:40 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for joining us here tonight, and we'll see you again next week.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.